Good afternoon, everyone. It is Wednesday, September 15th, 2021 at 3 o'clock p.m., and that means it's time for Women in Business. I'm really pleased to see all of you today. I think we're going to have a really substantive and good discussion, at least I hope we are, about women in appearance and how we react to our own appearance, how we react to others' appearances, how to stop judging how you look and how others look, why that seems to be something that women encounter that men don't. There's a lot of stuff to unpack about this subject. I also am going to apologize a little bit in advance because I will probably be shuffling some papers at a few points because there are some stats that I want to share with you. There are some interesting things that researchers have found out that I thought were germane to this situation, and I wanted to make sure that I had them on hand. So if I'm taking a minute to shuffle some papers to get to where I need to be, please bear with me on that. I will try to keep that to a minimum. The first thing that I want to start off with today is the angst I had about my own appearance before we did this. It happens every time I know that it's show day, I'll be honest. I have some serious issues with my appearance, always have had. There's a lot of reasons why that is the way that it is. Stemming from some of the things we'll talk about today and events that happened in my life, whatever. So preparing to be on camera for me is a very difficult thing, and I overthink all of it. I overthink what I wear, I overthink my makeup, I overthink my hair. I worry that I'm too much this or not enough that, or the lighting isn't right, or I'm not wearing the right thing, or I look too fat, or my face is too round, or there's like 5 million appearance related things that I kind of run through like a checklist. And then in the end, I just go, okay, this is what I do. I think it's important that I do it. So whatever I feel about how I look on any particular day, and I have to say, I never go, damn, you're hot, woman. I usually go, okay, I'm not actively horrible, so we can probably go. And then I go. And I know there are a lot of women who go through this same process, some of whom I probably think are absolutely gorgeous, and what could they possibly have to worry about? So it's not, I realize this is not related to me specifically, but there were a couple of things that I wanted to touch on right away. One is, why is this confined to women? One of the reasons that this show is happening is because I had a really interesting conversation with a couple of gentlemen, and they are gentlemen that I really, really adore, Jay Bassell and Eric Campbell. And we were all at the trade show this past weekend, ISS Fort Worth, and we were talking. And Eric brought up that he has a coworker, Lisa Shaw, who gets comments all the time on her videos about her makeup or her hair or her clothes or any number of appearance related issues, and how weird that was. And I piped up with, oh yeah, that's happened to me. And I think it's happened to most women who do anything on camera. And we talked about why that was. And out of that discussion came this show. And the interesting thing was, both of them, Eric has a show called The Take Up. Jay has a show called Tacos with Jay and Jeff, I believe it is. I hope I got that right, Jay. And they're on camera equally as regularly as I am, but nobody's going on and saying, hey, nice shirt, dude, or how come you wore your hair that way today, or whatever else, or how come you always wear a hat, or how come you always have your shirt buttoned up, or whatever it is. Nobody's doing that to them. But if you're female in this space, if you're female and you're on camera, it's like open season. Everybody feels like they have the right to make a comment on your appearance. And that's a double standard that really stinks. And I like Cindy King says, I think you look fantastic. Be like me as is. And yeah, I'm probably stripped down compared to a lot of women. I don't wear a ton of makeup. I just started wearing lipstick when I started doing these shows because it was pointed out to me that lipstick does emphasize your coloring and your mouth a little bit. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. And Melissa says, I do the not actively horrible every day, even worse when I do meetings or present. Yes. And Marnie asked, is it a comment or a compliment? There is a difference. And I think that is a distinction. That was the word I was trying to think of. And for some reason, it wouldn't come into my head. That is a distinction that we need to make. That someone can say, oh, nice hairdo, or I really love your lipstick, or that's a great color on you. And that's a compliment. And compliments are lovely. And I think we all need to compliment each other more. But there are also people who feel like they have the right to say, that shirt is too tight on you, or that lipstick is horrible for your coloring, or whatever it is. That's not a compliment. That's a criticism. That's something negative. And I think if you're genuinely trying to do good by saying, hey, maybe that lipstick isn't the right shade for you, then do that quietly and maybe in a private message or something. And then there are comments that are just judgy, that are just not positive and not helpful and not anything that you really need to say to another person. So I think that is a question. And I like that you brought that up, Marnie. And then Marnie says, I was going to say that the colors you have on today look great for you. This is to be a compliment. And I appreciate that, Marnie. And I take that as a compliment. And I think that's a good distinction. If you're commenting on something positive, hey, you have a pretty smile. Hey, you have nice eyes. I love your new haircut. I love your new hair color, whatever it is. That's you're genuinely trying to make somebody feel nice and feel positive about themselves. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Where the judging comes in is when we start commenting negatively about other people's appearance, or when we make assumptions about someone based on their appearance when we don't know them and we've never had any interaction with them. And that we'll talk about a little bit later too. But I like that distinction, Marnie, and I really am glad that you brought that up, because we shouldn't be wary of complimenting other people in a positive way to let them know that we like a choice that they made, or, we think they have pretty features or whatever it is. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Now, I do think, and this is something that we all need to be aware of, and if you are on LinkedIn and you go to my LinkedIn profile, you'll see a really interesting video where someone made a comment about this in regards to her baby. And she said, I have a little girl, but not everybody always knows that she's a little girl. And what I've noticed is when people are complimenting her and they know she's a girl, they say, what a pretty dress, or what a pretty smile, or, she's so cute. When they think that perhaps maybe she's a boy, they compliment her on her energy, or look how fast she moves, or look how strong she is. And we need to be aware of that, because if all of the feedback and positive compliments that women and girls, especially young girls, get are on how they look, then that's what they're going to focus on. And if boys are complimented less on how they look and more on how they act and the outcome of those actions, then they're going to be more proactive. And it starts that early, sadly. And I want to read you some stats because I think some of this stuff is interesting. The current media ideal of thinness for women in the media is achievable by less than 5% of the female population. So 5% of women out there could realistically achieve the standards of thinness that models and women on television actresses do. And when you think about that, that's not so surprising, because if you talk to a lot of these actresses, they have trainers, they have nutritionists, they spend hours and hours every day maintaining the level of thinness that they have. It's not realistic. So, some other things that I want to read. Up to 8 out of 10 women will be dissatisfied with their reflection when they look in a mirror, and more than half may see a distorted image. And this is where things like body dysmorphia and issues like that come in, where you focus you have such a laser-like focus on what you don't like that you don't see all that's attractive about yourself. And because you're focusing so much on this particular body part, you may blow it out of proportion to the point that you can't even see it realistically. I have this with my upper arms. You will almost never, ever, ever see me in anything short-sleeved without a cardigan or a sweater or something on. It just doesn't happen because I used to weigh quite a bit more than I do now. And I have the kind of flappy fat on my upper arms. Now I do weights, I've done push-ups, I've done everything I can. It's just not going to go away. It's there now. The skin is just stretched and it's not going away. But I'm hyper aware of it. So it's very, very rare to see me in something that isn't long sleeved because I just don't like that part of my body. And when it's exposed, it makes me so self-conscious that I can't concentrate on just being the person that I want to be. So, I mean, I think this is not really a thing that we're unaware of, but because women are judged on their appearance more than men and standards of female beauty are considerably higher and more inflexible, then women tend to be a lot more self-critical than men. That's not to say that there aren't men who are out there going, man, I wish that I had, I wish that I was taller, or I wish that I didn't have such a beer gut, or whatever it is. So I'm sure there are men out there that have that issue. Interestingly enough, I thought one of the stats that was in the stuff that I found is that men who are homosexual, i.e. they'll be judged by other men, tend to be more worried about their appearance than heterosexual men. I don't know if that means women are less judgy when it comes to men. I'm not sure. I couldn't even say. But I think that's interesting that if you're trying to attract a man, you tend to be more critical about your appearance, whether you're heterosexual or homosexual, which I think is an interesting thing. And I also think that it's interesting that over time, our standards have changed. In 1917, the physically perfect woman was 5'4" tall and weighed nearly 10 stone. A stone is 14 pounds, so 140 pounds. Even 25 years ago, top models and beauty queens weighed only 8% less than the average women. Now they weigh 23% less. So our standards of what's beautiful have gotten more inflexible and harder for your average woman to achieve. So this is very sweet. Cindy says, my husband commented a few more times to me about what beautiful skin and countenance you have. And I met Cindy's husband in Fort Worth, and he said the same thing to me, which I thought was really sweet because you don't hear many people say countenance. I liked that. That was very classy, I thought. So tell Russell thank you for me, Cindy. That was very sweet. And here's another thing that's really sad. In one American survey, 81% of 10-year-old girls had already dieted at least once. A recent Swedish study found that 25% of 7-year-old girls had dieted to lose weight, and they were already suffering from body image distortion, estimating themselves to be larger than they were. Similar studies in Japan have found that 41% of elementary school girls, some as young as 6, thought they were too fat. And boys worry less than girls. I don't think this is anything that we're not aware of. Boys, the focus is less on their appearance. They're complimented less on their appearance. They're judged less on their appearance. It's just how it goes. In adults, women over 18 looking at themselves in the mirror, research indicates that at least 80% are unhappy with what they see, and many will not even see an accurate reflection. And what's really sad is, we've all heard that anorexics can view themselves as larger than they are, but recent research shows that even people who aren't anorexic can have a distorted image of their size and what they look like. So this is like a serious problem. This is something that a lot of people are dealing with. If you were teased in your childhood about flaws in your appearance, or if you were picked on as a teenager, your body image can become completely and permanently distorted. I know that happened to me. I was picked on a lot in junior high, particularly seventh grade. I also hit puberty early. I hit puberty in fourth grade. So I had boobs long before most of my contemporaries. And that made me very self-conscious and very uncomfortable. And the last thing I want to talk about here is if you are someone who is overweight, and it doesn't even have to be obese, although obesity is probably the most prevalent time when this happens, but because there is fat phobia and prejudice in our culture about being overweight, obese people or women who are overweight tend to have a very poor body image, not to mention severe anxiety and depression. Studies have shown that the mental well-being of obese women is worse than that of the chronically ill or severely disabled. And an interesting caveat to this study that I thought was really an eye-opener is if you were overweight in a culture that does not shame people who are overweight and may even value being a little bigger, then you don't have these same problems. So the problems weren't caused by being overweight. The problems were caused by the attitude of people towards you carrying excess weight, which I thought, that's really interesting. There's so much pressure on being thin and what the standards of beauty are that if you transgress against those standards in this culture, you can actually start to have mental health issues because of the attitudes you will encounter. So that's a lot of stats that I've just thrown at you right there. But I think it's really interesting to consider how much pressure women are under and how much we are judged, whether we want to admit it or not. And I'm not excluding men from this conversation because I think men are judged on their appearance too. But I think, number one, men maybe have a tendency to assume that they're hotter than they are, or not to think about it as much, where women can obsess about it to the point of feeling like a gargoyle and wanting to hide in their room forever, which I think is sad. Because not liking your appearance or feeling bad about it or feeling like you're substandard in some way can keep you from contributing to the world to the fullest extent that you can. And I think that's a really sad thing. I've had women tell me, I don't want to be on camera because I don't feel like I look nice when I'm on camera. And I always want to go, but you do, and it doesn't really matter. I'm not a supermodel. I'm never going to be a supermodel. I'm always going to be curvy. I'm always probably going to be over the weight that is considered optimal. And I work out and I try to eat right and I try to be, as healthy as I can be. But I have switched my focus to I'm doing it now to try to be healthy and not because I want to meet some societal standard that I'm probably never going to meet. I'm never going to be a size 2 unless I eat nothing and exercise 5 hours a day. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I dropped a bunch of weight because I was unhealthy and I knew that. And it's helped and that was good. And I like being fitter and I like being able to lift weights and I like being able to do cardio. And I'm concentrating on that and not on, and my light just went away. So this is an interesting lighting situation we're having right now. But you know what? Life happens and hopefully this big old cloud will go away and then I'll get my sun back and the lights will be better. But anyway, so here's the question. So we know that appearance can impact jobs, it can impact relationships, it can impact what we do in the world, it can impact what we think about ourselves, it can impact so many things. And we also know that if you're female, you're going to be judged on your appearance more than most men are probably, and in more situations. And we also know, fairly or unfairly, that sometimes the people who are judge us most harshly are other women, which is a sad thing, but it happens. So what we need to look at is, okay, how do we combat this stuff? The first way we do that, stop comparing yourself to other people, especially models and movie stars and people who have a ton of money and a ton of time and a ton of help and a ton of incentive to maintain their appearance the way it is. If somebody was paying me $10 million to be in a movie, yeah, I'd probably exercise 3 hours a day and eat, chicken and broccoli for 5 months. Nobody's paying me to do that. Nobody's paying me $10 million to do anything. But we need to stop comparing ourselves. Or even if it's, if you're walking through a trade show or walking through a grocery store or whatever it is, and you see somebody and you're doing a mental comparison in your mind of that woman is thinner than me and this woman's prettier than me and that woman has a better hair color than me or whatever it is, or, that woman dresses better than I do, whatever it is. Stop doing it. You are who you are. Make the most of the features that you like about yourself. Dress in a way that makes you feel comfortable. Eat the stuff that's going to make you be healthy. Do the necessary exercise you need to do to be healthy. And let the rest of it go. Stop comparing yourself to other people, because a lot of the people that we're comparing ourselves to, and this also goes to Instagram models or people on social media, they're curating their appearance. They're spending hours and hours getting this one perfect photo that they can put out and say, I just woke up this morning like this. And that's total bullshit. You didn't wake up this morning like this. And the celebrities that are appearing on red carpets at award shows and the celebrities that are appearing on talk shows, they have makeup artists, they have stylists, they have people who pick their clothes, they have people who make their food, they have people who help them do their makeup and their hair. They have a ton of resources to help them put out the absolute best appearance they can put out. And even then, my admiration and the people that I most enjoy watching are the celebrities that aren't groomed and curated within an inch of their life, who admit that, some days I'm having a fat day, and so I wear something more comfy. And that's how it works. But we have to stop comparing ourselves to other people. And I think this is across the board. This is stop comparing yourself in terms of appearance, stop comparing yourself in terms of your job, stop comparing yourself in terms of what you do or what you make. Stop it. Because there's always going to be people who are better than you. There's always going to be people who are worse than you. There's always going to be people who seem to be achieving the goal you want to achieve and people who aren't. But if you're always judging yourself against other people, you're not really paying attention to what you've done or what you've accomplished. And that's important. One of the best things I ever learned, because I had this big time when I was younger, I would always look around and feel like, well, that person's my age and they've already written a book, or that person's my age and they've already got an upper level executive position or whatever it was. And I'm not living up to my potential and I'm not doing what I should be doing, and I should be sad or ashamed about, my accomplishments. And it doesn't get you anywhere. And you don't know anybody else's story. You don't know what they went through or what help they had or, any of that. So stop it, because you're not going to get to where you want to be. And Marnie says, someone told me a while ago, we do the comparisons, but everyone has a story. And sometimes those stories are not what they think they are. Exactly. So don't compare to other people, because you don't know, the person that you may think is doing worse than you could be recovering from cancer or might have gone through a horrible divorce or could be struggling with mental illness. And the person that you think is doing better than you is probably looking at somebody else and going, I should be doing more than I am, or I should look better than I am, or I should have lost another 10 pounds. We all do it. So stop doing it. Stop comparing. You are amazing the way you are. And the only person that you should be comparing yourself to is who you used to be, because hopefully you've made further steps toward who you want to be. So that's my comparison. I look back at the person I was and I say, okay, I'm doing pretty good. I've gotten some of the things I wanted to get. I've stopped some of the behaviors that I knew were bad for me. I've made progress. I'm closer to being the person that I want to be. Yay. So the only comparison I ever make is a comparison to who I used to be. And the reason I do that is because I want to know that I'm making progress. And the only way to determine that is to compare myself with the Christine of 20 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever it is. And I'm happy to say I like myself a lot better now than I did 20 years ago or 10 years ago. So if you're in a situation currently where you feel like you're not happy with yourself, keep that in mind. You can change, you can grow. You do have to work at it, but you can do it. And if there's something you don't like about your life or your appearance, there's an old saying, you are not a tree. You can move, you can grow, you can change. So keep that in mind. When we're talking about appearance, though, one thing that does help is stop focusing on the stuff that you don't like. Stop focusing on the bingo wings. Stop it. It doesn't help. Focus instead on, I like my hair. It's gray, but I like it. I think it looks nice. I like my eyes. I think I have pretty eyes. I like my skin most of the time. It's a little blotchy on my forehead right now. I don't know why, but historically, I've liked my skin. I think I have a pretty complexion. That kind of stuff. So I try to focus on those things. And when I sit here before I go on air and I look in the camera and I go, ooh, which that was a lovely face, I know, but I do that. I go, oh my God, how is your face so round? How is this? Then I have to refocus it and say, okay, but I like my eyes. I think I have pretty eyes. I like my skin. I think it looks nice. I like my hair. I think it's fun. I miss the red, but it's gray now, so there it is. I like my smile. I like my voice, all that stuff. I think almost everybody can find something about their appearance that they like. They have pretty hands. Now, that's one thing. I don't have pretty hands. I have very short fingers for my size, and it drives me nuts because I've always wanted long, elegant, tapered fingers where I could wear. But see, there I go. I'm comparing again, and I'm making judgments about something that this is genetics. I cannot make these fingers be longer. They are what they are. So I don't focus on those, or I try not to focus on those. And sometimes I don't focus on appearance at all. I focus on, I'm going to do a really good show and share some great information and help people. Or I'm really glad that my brain works the way it does and I can think about all this stuff. Or I'm glad that I'm articulate and I can speak well and I can get on camera and convey these ideas and hopefully help people. None of those things are appearance related. I could have those things whether I weighed 500 pounds or 5 pounds. Well, if I weighed 5 pounds, probably not. But you know what I'm saying. So focus on the things you like about yourself. Focus on the things that are positive. Don't spend a lot of time focusing on things that that either you can't change in that moment or that you can't change at all. I suppose I could get colored contacts, but realistically, I can't really change my eye color. I could dye my hair, but my hair is the way it is. I could starve myself, but that would be detrimental to my health. So my face is always going to be a little round, and that's kind of how it is. So focus on what you like, and I'm going to pop over here. And I don't know if this is Melissa or if this is someone else, but I'm just seeing Facebook users. So whoever you are, please let me know. I know I am showing my age here, but whatever happened to don't judge a book by its cover and actually paying attention to what comes out of a person's mouth. And that's very true, too. I mean, getting to know someone and not making assumptions that the person who has tattoos is, a rocker and a druggie, or assuming that the woman who's absolutely gorgeous and perfectly coiffed is therefore dumb as a stump. I mean, we all make assumptions and we all make judgments, and that's a problem. And I like this comment from Marnie where she says, but your hands work. They do. And they allow me to write and type and do all the things I need to do. So my short little stubby fingers get a lot done. And I need to remember that because I tend to focus on the short little stubby part and not the part that they allow me to do all these things. Now, the next thing we need to talk about is exactly in line with don't judge a book by its cover, which is halt judgment in its tracks. And that means when you realize that you're doing it, stop doing it. And I'll give you an example because I thought when I realized it, I thought that it was kind of funny and sad. So when I went to come home on Monday, I was at the airport and I was checking in and dropping off my luggage, and you know how you do at the airport. And a couple lanes over from me was this woman who was doing the same thing. And she had on the tightest flesh-colored spandex top and pants I have ever seen. And she was a larger woman, so it was interesting, let's put it that way. But and I don't want to be judgy again now when I'm describing it, but it was very tight, and there was an abundance of her and not a lot of material, let's put it that way. And my first thing that came into my head was, oh, wow, there's a look, and gee, I don't know that I would have picked that outfit. And then I kind of went, you know what? She's comfortable in it. She feels good in it. It's a choice that she made. Who am I to say that she shouldn't wear that? Who am I to say that it's too tight or it's too revealing or whatever it is? And I hate to say this because it's awful, but, the initial thought that came into my head is, oh, she must be flying home to her street corner, and I was like, oh, that's awful. And I don't like that. And I don't want to be that person. But, that was the judgment. And I don't want that. I don't want to judge people on their appearance. I don't want to judge the book before I know what's inside it. I don't know who that woman was. She could have been a teacher or a nurse or a doctor or a professor or a scientist. I have no idea. But I was making a judgment based on how she looked in that moment. And I was making a value judgment also on the fact that her clothes were too tight and I thought they were too revealing and I wouldn't wear anything like that. So she doesn't care what I would wear. She's not me. I'm not her. So you need to stop the judgments, and we all make them. And I think sometimes they're so instinctive because that's the culture that we've been raised in. And especially if you're female. I mean, how many times have you seen a woman with a lot of makeup on and made a value judgment about her? Or seen a woman with no makeup on and made a value judgment about her? Or seen someone who's a little bit more abundant in the flesh area and thought that their clothes were too tight or they shouldn't be wearing so low cut a shirt or so revealing of this or whatever it was. There's all these value judgments that we make before we even get to know people or understand who they are or what they're about. And we also have assumptions that people should dress, certain people in certain professions and certain people who do certain things should dress certain ways, which I think is kind of detrimental too. If you're a doctor and you like wearing jeans and muscle shirts, is that wrong? If you're a woman and you love having a bunch of tattoos, what does that say about you besides you like tattoos? But for a lot of people, a woman who has tattoos, they put you in a certain category. You're a biker mama or whatever. And it's like, you don't know these people. All you're seeing is some superficial appearance things, and you're making judgments about their economic status, their intelligence, the job they hold, the way they behave, and you've seen nothing. I mean, I get it all the time. I can't tell you because I look like, so I've been told several times, a soccer mom. People assume I have kids or grandkids. which I don't. People assume that I'm very conservative, which I'm not. People assume that I'm a stay-at-home, upper income mom, and I probably have a hubby that's keeping me somewhere. No, and no. But I dress a certain way and I look a certain way. Now, the way I dress is morphing somewhat because I like myself better now, so I'm dressing a little bit more to be noticed than I used to. But I'm still probably going to be a little bit a conservative dresser because that's just what's comfortable to me. But a lot of people, because of how I dress and because of how I look, have made a lot of assumptions about my lifestyle, who I am, what I do, what I want, what I think, none of which is accurate. So, but it's interesting to me that people make assumptions and just assume that they can come up to me. And I've had people ask me, oh, where do your children go to college? And I'm like, well, they're imaginary, so they go to Hogwarts. But, I don't have kids. I'm not married. I've never been married. I would have liked to be, but it just never worked out, So don't assume. Get to know people and then decide if you like them or don't like them, and if you think they're talented or not talented or whatever it is. But don't judge somebody just based on whether they have tattoos or not, or whether they dress conservatively or not, or whether they wear low-cut tops or not, or whether they wear a ton of makeup or no makeup. Don't. Stop judging on the superficial shit, excuse me, and get to know people. No, I'm not going to say excuse me. I swear, deal with it. Stop judging on the superficial shit. Get to know people. Get a real idea of who someone is, and then decide if you like them or not. And we got more comments here. Let's see. My husband will say, Cindy says, my husband will say something like this when we encounter that. If I ever see you wear that, there are sometimes you just have to take a second look. And yeah, there are times. And Cindy also said, it's like the Walmart PJ photos. And yeah, it is. And we all look at those photos on Facebook and we laugh and we go, how could people go out in public like that? Which is another form of judgment. Do I agree with it? Would I step foot out of my door in sweatpants? No, never. I wouldn't, because I was raised with a mother who was hyper concerned about appearances. And you did not step out the door unless you were perfectly coiffed, you had your makeup done perfectly, you were dressed impeccably, your jewelry was perfect. I rebel somewhat against that because I don't go through the preparation that she would have gone through to go out into the world. I'm a little more lackadaisical than she was, but there are people who just genuinely don't give a crap. And if they don't, hooray for them. Maybe they're living better lives than the rest of us. But we all need to stop judging. Whether it's the Walmart PJ photos or the person that's down the line from you at the airport or in the grocery store or wherever it is. Stop making assumptions. Stop making judgments. The next thing we need to do is realize that probably everybody has these feelings. I would suspect the person who's considered the most beautiful person in the world has feelings of, I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I don't look the way I should. Pretty much everybody has probably looked in a mirror, if you're female, at some point and wished you had smaller thighs or bigger boobs or a less round face or whatever it is, or straight hair, or curly hair, or red hair, or brown hair, or whatever it was. Everybody goes through this stuff. We all have issues. Almost all of us. I mean, what was the stat I read earlier? Like 80% of women or 86% or whatever it was, have some issue with their body image, have some issue with how they look, are dissatisfied with it. And then you add in, if you are a woman who is a little bigger or a lot bigger, you get an even bigger heaping of judgment. It's like the extra scoop of ice cream on the sundae that tells you that you're substandard and you shouldn't be allowed and you're not attractive and you're not romantic material or whatever it is. So it's a wonder sometimes that any of us ever leave the house, because you can encounter judgment at any time. And there's always, and our culture has kind of deified a certain level of thinness and beauty to the point where it's just not realistic, and it's hard to operate within those parameters. So you just need to, I think it helps though to understand that there's probably very few people out there who are actually going, dang, I look nice. I'm happy with how I look. I'm excited about how I look. And it's kind of a misery loves company situation a little bit, sadly. But if you're feeling bad and you realize that everybody's probably feeling bad or making judgments about themselves, or having days where they wake up and go, man, I just shouldn't even go out the door today because I'm horrible. I'm a gargoyle. I'm, a monster. Then it makes it a little bit better. And I think it makes us a little more accepting and maybe a little less judgmental. And I think we also need to realize that we need to compliment people on things other than their appearance, because everybody has these feelings, or a lot of people have these feelings, but a lot of these feelings are exacerbated because we focus on appearance so much. And not that complimenting people's appearance is bad. I don't think that's bad. And I don't, as we were talking earlier when Marnie said she liked the colors I was wearing today, I didn't take that negatively. I appreciated it. I thought it was nice. But I think we need to also be aware as a culture and as human beings that, especially when it comes to women, we need to try to compliment things other than appearance sometimes. You did a great job on that presentation. I really loved that point you made in the meeting. I thought, the lunch you made was really great, or I really was impressed with how well you parent your children, or whatever it is. Pick a thing, something that isn't appearance related, that has to do with an action or being smart or being talented in some way, and we need to do more of that. We need to do more of that with humans in general, but I think particularly with women, because a lot of compliments that women get are appearance based. And the message we keep getting is our appearance matters more than how smart we are, how kind we are, how talented we are, any of that stuff. So, and I have my After Hours with Lisa Tumblr today. So needed a little drink there because my voice is going fuzzy. So I think we need to really be aware that complimenting someone's appearance is not wrong, but we need to make sure that we're complimenting other things as well. And we're not always focusing, particularly with women and especially with young girls and adolescent girls. We're not always focusing on you look pretty, or that's a pretty dress, or I love your handbag, or your boots are really cute, or your hair looks really good today. And we're also telling them, that was a really insightful point you made in that meeting, or I loved how kind you were to that kid on the playground, or you did a great job in that race, way to keep running right till the end, or whatever it is. And yeah, I know I'm making up, compliments on the fly, but you get what I'm saying. So if we understand that everybody has these feelings, and we make an effort to also let people know that we see more about them than just their appearance, I think we make strides toward getting out of this mess where we're so focused on appearance and women are so judged by how they look that we end up obsessing about something that we honestly can't change. And Cindy makes a really good point here. Bodies are our family genes. We cannot change that. But our attitude, outlook, and goals are what sets you above some of those that judge. And I think that's totally true. At the end of the day, our body is our body. And we can do things to minimize what we think are our flaws, and we can obsess over, losing weight or whatever. But at the end of the day, you got what you got. So what we need to do is focus on the things that are unique to us and that are special and that are worthy of complimenting. So I'm going to get off that soapbox now and step on another one. Accept that cultural standards are unrealistic. And I read that stat in the very beginning of this, and I'm going to go back and see if I can find it now. The current media ideal of thinness for women is achievable by less than 5% of the female population. 5%. That means 95% of us are struggling to get to somewhere that they're never going to get to. How sad is that? And how sad is it that that's what our culture wants to place emphasis on? We're not placing emphasis when it comes to women on, are they smart? Are they talented? Are they, talented in many areas? Are they talented athletically? Are they talented musically? Are they talented artistically? Whatever it is, we're not focusing on any of that. We're basically telling women that their worth depends on how close they can get to a standard that is so unrealistic that only 5% of the women in the culture can meet it. That's just stupid. So stop comparing yourselves to people who have a ton of help and who probably spend a reasonable portion of their day trying to meet standards that are probably unrealistic for them to meet. Because that's just silly. There's so much more in the world than how we look. There's so many more problems that are more important than whether your face is round or not, or whether you're a size 6 or a size 16 or a size 26. There are so many things that are more important than that. Are you being a good citizen of the world? Are you helping people? Are you using your talents to their fullest abilities? Are you putting good out into the world? Are you supporting other people? All these things. Are you being a good parent and a good partner and a good friend and a good, sibling or child or whatever it is? All that stuff is so much more important than whether you're a size 2. But we place more emphasis on the size 2 than we do on a lot of this other stuff. So just put it in your head. The standards that we have as a culture for what beauty is, for what's acceptable, are only achievable by 5% of the women in the world. That's a sad, sad statement right there. That we have so gotten out of whack that we've set standards for ourselves that almost nobody can achieve. That's just stupid. So we need to stop looking at those cultural standards as the benchmark. Honestly, I would prefer the benchmark be something like, are you a good citizen of the world? Are you contributing as much as your talents and abilities allow you to contribute? Are you putting good into the world? Are you making a difference in the world writ large or writ small, in your community or in the world in general? Doesn't matter. Are you making things better today than they were yesterday? Are you making progress toward being a fully actualized human being? Those are the cultural standards I would like us to adopt. This crap about I need to be a size 2 and a toothpick. And yes, I have some resentment in this area because, like I said, my genetics, I'm not built that way. I got boobs at 10. I got hips at 10. I got a butt at 10. It was like a birthday present or something. Here you go, puberty. I'm curvy. I'm going to be curvy. Even if I dieted down to a size 6, I'm still going to be curvy. It's just the way it is. And if I dieted down to a size 6, I probably would die because I would be eating basically nothing. So yes, I have some issues in this area. And let's see. I have a Facebook user here. I don't know who this is, who says, I'm having lunch while listening. I like that. So good. You're eating while we're talking about appearance. I love that. So another couple things I want to touch on. We touched on this earlier, is realize that the beautiful people often have help. If you see some celebrity interviews with women, they talk about they have an entire room that's devoted to getting ready for red carpet events and places where they're going to have to appear in front of cameras, they have what they call glam squads, or they have a hairdresser and they have a makeup person and they have a stylist who picks their clothes. And they have all these people who help them look the way they look. Plus, they also have nutritionists, and they are incentivized a lot of times to stay thin because that's what the culture says they have to be. So there's a lot of stuff to unpack there. But when you're comparing yourself to someone who has all these things that'll help them get to this unrealistic standard that we should abolish, you're really just shooting yourself in the foot. So Beth says that was Carolyn Cagle that said she was having lunch while listening. And I also like this one. Whoops, hit the wrong button. Kirby Rocks. I think it does too now. I didn't used to, but I have become aware of that it is more acceptable it's more acceptable to me than it used to be. Let's put it that way. And we also touched on this one, which is Reframe How We Compliment. Make sure that in addition to, I like your sweater, or I like your shoes, or your hair looks really great today, we're also saying that was an insightful comment in that meeting, or I really loved how you played with that little girl that was shy today and helped her feel more comfortable, or whatever it is. And particularly when it comes to little girls and young women, we need to really make sure that there's a good balance between appearance-based compliments and complimenting their talents, complimenting their skills, complimenting their behaviors, all that kind of stuff. Because too many times the messages that young women and young girls get are appearance-based, and that's not helping anybody. So let's stop doing that because it's no good. And I think we also have to draw a line when somebody compliments us inappropriately. I will tell this story just because I still have this moment of what the hell was this guy thinking? But years ago, and this is some years ago, I went on an online dating site because I was hoping to meet somebody. And I didn't have a lot of pictures because I still don't like how I appear in photographs. So my go-to is not to take pictures of myself. I don't tend to do that a lot. So I asked a friend of mine, will you take a picture of me? And she said, yeah, let's go outside. It'll be pretty. We'll put you against this bush. It'll be a nice, this green leafy bush, and it'll be a nice frame. Well, we went out and I was wearing, as I habitually did, a sweater set, which was a sweater with a square neck that showed quite a bit of cleavage, but I had a cardigan on over it. And we took a couple pictures, and then my friend says, why don't you take the cardigan off and we'll just take the sweater because it's a nice day and there's sun and, it'll look a little more casual. Didn't really think about it and did it. Well, this particular sweater, and I was somewhat larger at the time, and so I had a pretty good rack. And this particular sweater emphasized it. Didn't really notice it or think about it, so put the picture up on the website, and the first message I got was from a guy who said, nice boobs. And that was the entire message. Now, I was younger then. I was probably more timid then, so I didn't email him back and go, seriously, you think that's the way to start a conversation? Are you getting a lot of women with this approach? And maybe he thought he was being funny. Maybe he thought because of the picture that I chose that I was trying to emphasize that I had a nice chest. I don't know. But I would like to go back in time so I could now ask him, what the hell, dude? Why did you think that was? Did you think I was going to react positively to that? That I was going to go, yay, this is a guy I want to go out on a date with? You got to wonder about these things. But for a lot of people, telling someone they have nice boobs or a nice ass or, you have a pretty smile or whatever it is acceptable. And I don't think it's not acceptable in the right context, but you also have to know your room. And in this case, the guy clearly did not. And So I got off the site and ran away. And let's see, Carolyn says, I have 4 granddaughters and I try hard to compliment on actions rather than appearance. It's hard not to say, oh, you look so pretty today. And yeah, I think that's true, particularly with little girls, because that's how we tend to default to that. But we need to stop doing that. So I think we need to be aware of that. But the last thing I want to say, because we're getting here towards the end, is part of the reason that I told the nice boob story. We need to call out appearance-based prejudice when we see it and hear it. We need to let the media outlets and the magazines and the movie studios know that this is not okay. That when the fat person is always the girl that doesn't get asked to the prom, that's not okay. When we do, I put something up on the Women in Business Facebook page, which was, these amazing female artists who were accomplished singers and actresses, and the appearance-based and the romance-based and the sexist questions they get asked when they go to red carpets, and sometimes by other women, which is even sadder. So, we need to be aware of this, and we need to call it out when we see it, and we need to call it out in each other when we see it, and we need to call it out on ourselves when we see it. If I assume that someone who has tattoos is a biker chick and stupid, that's wrong of me. If I assume that the woman who is wearing a tight spandex dress is, getting ready to do her shift on the corner, then that's wrong. That's a judgment based on nothing but what I'm seeing in her appearance, and that's wrong. If I assume that the really pretty woman is stupid, that's wrong. You need to understand these prejudices in yourself and call them out on yourself first. And then when you see them happening or hear them happening amongst other people, call those people out. Be brave and tell them, this is not okay. This is not what you're supposed to be doing. Because we all interact in this world and we all impact each other in different ways. And we all need to be aware of that. And we all need to make sure that we're letting other people know when they're crossing the line. And it's hard to do. I know. It's hard to call it out. And I've done it. I've sat there and watched people denigrate somebody or make fun of somebody and not said anything. And I hate that I did that, but we've all probably done it. And you need to get to the place where you're comfortable enough with speaking up. And now I would. 10 years ago, I probably wouldn't have. We all grow and we learn. But I think we need to call this stuff out because Carolyn says, I find it disappointing stars who are plus size then lose a ton of weight and that rates them more than their talent. That's a slap in the face. Let's stop this. And I agree. And I think that you should, if you're overweight and you're unhealthy being overweight or you're uncomfortable being overweight, then yeah, lose the weight. It's your body. Do what you want to do with it. But I don't think, I experienced this myself. I probably dropped about 60 pounds now. And I can remember seeing family members or friends that I hadn't seen in a while. And the whole conversation was, oh my God, you look great. You look so terrific. This is amazing. And I was like, in this same time period that I was losing the weight, I was also starting my own company. I also was starting this podcast. I also was, writing articles and doing a bunch of other things. And nobody was commenting on that. Nobody was telling me how amazing that was. But I lose a bunch of weight and wow, that's a big deal. So yeah, it is disappointing that trumps whatever talent or skill or ability or award you won or whatever you did. It is sad. So we need to change that. And we need to call it out when we see it. If you're complimenting somebody on their weight and not on their talent, we need to call that out. If you're making judgments about somebody based solely on their appearance, we need to call that out. And the more that we talk about it and the more that we try to put I don't want to say the right, but the more that we try to put positive stuff out in the world, I think the better off we'll all be. And you know what? I've talked for almost an hour already. And that was my last point. So I'm going to stop this here because I could rant for another hour on this subject because it's one that has impacted my life a lot, and I'm not going to lie. So I thought it was an important thing to say. For the next few weeks, the shows will probably be a little bit on the fly in terms of what the subject matter is. I have a lot of people I'm talking to after being in Fort Worth about coming on as guests. We just need to get things scheduled and get things settled. So there may be a guest next week. There may not. I don't know. Either way, I hope you will be here with me. I appreciate you all being here. I appreciate the comments that you all make that are substantive. And I love our discussions. I want to keep having them. So thank you very much for spending time with me today. And I'm going to hit end broadcast, and I will see you all